She is crying in the bathroom for the third time this week. He cancelled plans again, without giving any explanation. He sent a cold message, 2 hours after the agreed time. And do you know what's worse? She's already thinking about how to regain his attention. She's already making excuses in her head. She's already feeling that desperate need to receive just one compliment, a sign that she still matters to him. Meanwhile, the guy who treated her like a queen, who called every day just to see how she was, who planned special dates, has been left on read for weeks. Why? Because he was too boring. Because he was clingy. Because he didn't spark that feeling. This behavior isn't a matter of stupidity. It isn't masochism. It isn't lack of self-love, at least not at first. It's something much deeper, something embedded in the structure of human attraction that most people are completely unaware of. We're talking about mechanisms operating below consciousness, like invisible strings pulling decisions that seem irrational in the light of reason. The uncomfortable truth is this: the female brain has been shaped by millions of years of evolution to respond intensely to certain male signals. And these signals have nothing to do with kindness, gentleness, or respectful treatment. On the contrary, primitive attraction, the kind that gives butterflies, obsession, uncontrollable desire, is connected to completely different indicators. Indicators that, ironically, appear more often in men who do not treat women well. Let's start with a concept that bothers many people but is essential to understand this: hypergamy. This term comes from evolutionary biology and describes the natural tendency of females in various species, including humans, to seek partners with superior resources. We're not talking only about money. We're talking about social status, confidence, leadership, ability to protect. It's a survival instinct that was crucial for hundreds of thousands of years. A woman who chose a weak, insecure, or submissive partner put her own survival and that of her children at risk. That's why the female brain developed a sort of radar to detect male value. And here lies the first major problem. The signals that indicate high value to this primitive radar are often the same signals that abusive and manipulative men emit. Excessive confidence? Could be narcissism. Emotional independence? Could be calculated coldness. Unpredictable behavior? Could be dangerous emotional instability. The ancient brain cannot distinguish between a genuinely confident man and a skilled manipulator. Both activate the same neural circuits of attraction. Now think about the opposite situation. The kind, attentive, always available guy. He replies to messages quickly. He cancels appointments to be with her. He clearly shows she is an absolute priority. He gives constant compliments. He asks what she wants to do, where she wants to go, what she prefers. In theory, this should be perfect. In practice, the hypergamy radar interprets these signals as low value. Why? Because a high-value man would have options. He would have a full life. He wouldn't put a woman above everything else. Excessive availability unconsciously communicates, "You are all I have. Nothing else is going on in my life." This creates a paradoxical phenomenon. The more a man shows love and dedication, the less attraction he generates. And the more he distances himself, creates space, appears busy or uninterested, the more the woman feels the need to win him over. It's not logical. It doesn't make rational sense. But it makes perfect evolutionary sense. For most of human history, women couldn't choose based on romantic feelings. They needed to choose based on survival. And men who displayed emotional need were usually the ones with fewer resources, lower status, and less ability to protect. Here comes the concept of disproportionate emotional investment. When a woman perceives that she likes a man more than he likes her, something interesting happens in the brain. The reward system switches to scarcity mode. Every message from him becomes a valuable prize. Every moment of attention becomes an achievement. The brain releases dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, intermittently and unpredictably, just like a slot machine. And decades of behavioral psychology research show that intermittent rewards create the most addictive behaviors that exist. Compare this with a relationship where the man is always present, always caring, always predictable. Dopamine continues to be released, but steadily. And the human brain adapts to constant stimuli. They become the new normal. They stop generating emotion. It's the same reason you stop noticing the smell of your own home after a few minutes or stop feeling the clothes you're wearing. The nervous system is designed to detect changes, not constants. Emotional stability, ironically, becomes invisible. Meanwhile, instability keeps attention constantly engaged. But there's more. Another powerful mechanism is at play: self-worth validation through conquest. When a woman manages to tame a difficult man, when she gets a distant guy to finally show affection, when she transforms a man who mistreated others into someone who treats her well, it generates an extremely intense sense of victory and personal value. It's as if she thinks, if even him who is so selective chose me, then I must really be special. The man who chose her easily, who fell in love quickly, who never created obstacles, doesn't provide the same kind of validation. The conquest was too easy. Therefore, the reward seems less valuable. Think of that limited edition sneaker everyone wants, versus the sneaker on sale at the store. Both may have the same quality, the same comfort. But the brain values what's hard to get more. It's an ancient cognitive bias, deeply rooted. And it works exactly the same way with people. The easy-to-get man is automatically devalued, even if he is objectively a better partner. Now we reach the most disturbing point of all. Why do so many women get stuck in abusive cycles, repeatedly returning to men who hurt them? The answer lies in something called a traumatic bond, and it works frighteningly effectively. When a person experiences alternation between horrible treatment and intense moments of affection, the brain creates an emotional connection even stronger than in purely positive relationships. It sounds absurd, but science proves it. Here's how it works. After a period of coldness, distance, or even verbal aggression, when the man finally shows affection, it hits the woman with multiplied intensity. It's like being thirsty in the desert and finally finding water. The contrast amplifies the value of that moment of affection. And the brain records, "This man makes me feel the most intense emotions I've ever felt." What it doesn't record is that half of these emotions are suffering. The primitive brain only sees intensity. And every time she thinks about leaving, breaking up, or stepping away, the emotional memory brings back those magical moments. That day he was affectionate. That night that was perfect. That unexpected message saying he loved her. These moments become a reference, and she starts to believe the relationship could always be like this, if only she discovered the right formula. If she were interesting enough. If she stopped complaining so much. If she were more understanding of his difficult moments. If you've been following along and noticing patterns in your own life or in the lives of people close to you, leave a comment sharing your thoughts. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming videos on relationships and psychology. But you might be wondering, if all this is true, does this mean women are doomed to fall for bad men? That healthy relationships are impossible? That male kindness will never be valued? The answer is more complicated than yes or no. And it has to do with something few discuss openly: the balance between attraction and love. There is a brutal difference between what generates attraction and what builds lasting love. And this difference is the root of practically all modern romantic suffering. Attraction responds to signals of challenge, scarcity, unpredictability. Love grows with security, consistency, mutual vulnerability. They are completely opposite systems. And here's the drama: when you optimize for one, you often sacrifice the other. Men who mistreat women perfectly master the art of attraction. They create addictive cycles without even realizing they are doing it. It's not always calculated. Often it's just a result of their personality, emotional incapacity, natural selfishness. But the effect is the same. They keep the woman in a constant state of alert, trying to decipher his mood, trying to predict his next reaction, investing absurd mental energy just to keep the connection stable. Think about how much mental space that occupies. The woman wakes up thinking about him. She compulsively checks her phone. She analyzes every word from the last conversation, looking for clues about what he really feels. She asks her friends what a certain behavior means. This level of cognitive investment creates something psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Basically, the brain thinks, if I am investing so much time and energy in this person, they must be extremely important and valuable. Otherwise, I would be wasting my resources on something worthless, and that would mean I'm an idiot. To protect self-image, the brain distorts reality. It starts justifying his behavior. It invents explanations. He acts like this because he had a difficult childhood. He's afraid of commitment because he was betrayed in the past. Deep down he loves me, he just doesn't know how to show it. These narratives are not necessarily false, but they serve primarily a psychological function: making all that emotional investment make sense. Because admitting you are wasting time on someone who doesn't value you requires facing a painful truth about your own choices. Meanwhile, the kind guy doesn't trigger any of these mechanisms. He is transparent. He shows clear interest. He doesn't create puzzles to be solved. The woman doesn't need to expend energy trying to figure out whether he likes her or not because he makes it obvious that he does. And without all that cognitive investment, without all that mental energy poured into the relationship, the brain simply doesn't create the same level of obsessive attachment. It's like comparing someone who won the lottery with someone who built a fortune over years. The second is valued much more because effort was invested. But there is an even deeper layer to all of this, the question of female self-esteem. And here the topic gets heavy because it touches wounds from childhood. Women who had emotionally distant, critical, or absent parents often develop a pattern of attraction to similar men. It's not a coincidence. It's the brain trying to resolve an old trauma through a new relationship. The unconscious logic is, if I can make this man love me, I will finally prove that I am worthy of love. It's a pattern of repetition. The girl who grew up trying to win the approval of a cold father becomes the woman who falls for emotionally unavailable men. And each time she almost manages to extract some display of affection from this man, she feels euphoria that goes beyond the relationship itself. It's as if she's healing that inner child who never felt enough. Of course, this doesn't work. You can't heal childhood wounds through adult relationships. But the brain keeps trying. Women with genuinely solid self-esteem, who grew up feeling loved and valued unconditionally, usually don't fall into this trap. They don't feel the need to prove anything. When a man treats them badly, the reaction is simple: why would I waste time on someone like this? No drama. No obsession. They simply move on because they know they deserve better. And guess what? For these women, the kind, attentive guy doesn't seem boring. He seems exactly what he is, a smart choice. So the real question isn't why do women like men who mistreat them? The correct question is, why have some women developed patterns of attraction that lead them to value signals of disinterest? And the answer always traces back to some form of unresolved emotional wound. Whether it's family trauma, destructive past relationships, or cultural messages about what constitutes a real man. Now let's talk about another element that complicates this dynamic even more: the fantasy of transformation. There is something deeply seductive about the idea of being the special woman who can change a difficult man. It's the beauty and the beast archetype. The bad boy who becomes a prince charming through the love of a good woman. Hollywood has sold this story for decades. Popular romances revolve around this theme. And millions of women absorb the message: if you are patient enough, understanding enough, loving enough, he will change. But reality works differently. People only change when they decide to change for themselves, not because someone loves them. And while the woman waits for this magical transformation, she tolerates increasingly worse behavior. The boundary of what's acceptable is gradually pushed. First, it's just an occasional rudeness. Then constant criticism. Eventually, it can evolve into control, isolation, even violence. And at each stage she thinks, I've invested so much in this relationship, been through so much, it would be absurd to give up now, just when he might be about to change. This phenomenon is called the sunk cost fallacy. You keep investing in something bad because you've already invested too much to simply walk away. It's the same reason people stay in long lines after waiting a long time, or keep watching bad movies until the end. Only with relationships, the cost isn't just time. It's mental health, self-esteem, sometimes even physical safety. And while she's trapped in this cycle, the guy who would treat her well is moving on with his life. Perhaps he meets another woman who knows how to value what he offers. Perhaps he gives up trying and becomes more emotionally closed off. Or, ironically, perhaps he learns he needs to stop being so available and begins to imitate the behaviors of men who succeed with women, perpetuating the problem. Here we reach the most disturbing point of this whole equation, the moment when the woman finally realizes the pattern, but still can't leave. She knows, rationally, that the relationship is toxic. She can list all the problems. Her friends are tired of warning her. Even he has admitted he's not good for her. And still, every attempt to end it fails. She blocks, unblocks, breaks up, goes back. Swears this time it's final, and a week later she's answering his messages again. This stage is particularly cruel because awareness of the problem doesn't bring an automatic solution. It's like a smoker who knows cigarettes kill but keeps smoking. Knowing isn't enough when you're dealing with neural circuits of addiction. And yes, we are literally talking about chemical dependence. When she's with him, in the good moments, the brain releases oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. When he pulls away, those levels plummet. The result is identical to drug withdrawal, anxiety, compulsion, obsessive thoughts, a physical need for contact. The difference is that no one romanticizes cocaine addiction. But emotional dependence? That's sold as true love. Songs talk about not being able to live without someone. Movies show protagonists crossing continents for toxic loves. The entire culture confuses obsession with passion, and suffering with depth of feeling. So the woman trapped in this cycle doesn't even realize she's sick. She thinks she's loving intensely. And there's more. The brain under the effect of a traumatic bond loses the ability to make objective evaluations. It is literally an altered state of consciousness, similar to what happens in religious cults or hostage situations. Psychologists call it Stockholm Syndrome when the victim develops loyalty to the aggressor. It may sound extreme to compare a bad relationship with a kidnapping, but the neurological mechanisms are frighteningly similar. Social isolation, alternation between punishment and reward, growing emotional dependence. Many times the woman has already cut ties with friends who didn't understand the relationship. She's distanced herself from family who criticized the partner. Her social circle has shrunk until basically only he remains. And when you're isolated, without external perspectives, his reality becomes the only reality. His opinions about her become absolute truths. If he says she's too sensitive, too problematic, lucky to have someone who puts up with her, eventually she believes it. And once she believes it, the idea of leaving becomes even scarier. Because if he, who supposedly loves her, can barely stand her flaws, who else could? This is the stage where danger intensifies. Because when self-esteem has been completely destroyed, when the support network has been eliminated, when the woman's identity has fused entirely with the relationship, leaving stops being just difficult. It starts to feel impossible. She can no longer imagine who she would be without him. Life before the relationship feels like a distant, almost unreal past. And the future without him feels like a terrifying void. There's a fascinating study about this. Women in abusive relationships take an average of 7 attempts before they manage to leave for good. 7. It's not lack of strength. It's not stupidity. It's because every time she tries to leave, her whole body goes into panic. Physical loneliness hurts, literally. MRI studies show that romantic rejection activates the same brain areas as physical pain. So when she's alone, feeling that anguish in her chest, that unbearable emptiness, going back to him is like taking a painkiller. It may be poison, but it relieves the immediate pain. And he knows exactly when to show up. It's not always coincidence. Emotional manipulators develop an instinct to sense when the victim is starting to regain strength. That's when the affectionate messages arrive. The promises of change. The demonstrations of vulnerability she's waited months to see. I realized I was wrong. I can't live without you. I'll go to therapy. You're the only person who truly understands me. And it works. Because deep inside her, buried under all the disappointments, there's still that hope. The hope that kept her trapped from the beginning. The hope that the man she saw in the first dates, the one who made her feel special, still exists somewhere. That all the bad things were just phases. That his true love is about to emerge. So she goes back. And the cycle starts again, usually worse than before, because now he knows he can go even further and she'll still return. But there's something almost no one talks about at this stage, the part of the woman that doesn't want to leave. Not because she enjoys suffering, but because suffering has become familiar. The emotional intensity, even though negative, has become addictive. Calm, healthy relationships feel boring in comparison. It's as if she developed tolerance to normal emotions and now needs ever greater doses of drama to feel something. Therapy calls this the normalization of chaos. Even worse, at some level, the toxic relationship confirms deep beliefs she holds about herself. If she grew up thinking she doesn't deserve good things, that she has to work hard for crumbs of affection, that true love is supposed to hurt, then this relationship makes sense. It fits perfectly into her internal narrative about how the world works. But a man who treats her well? That creates dissonance. She doesn't know how to process genuine kindness because she never learned that she deserves it. And so we come to the critical moment, when something has to break. Either she breaks completely, losing all connection with who she really is, or something inside the relationship breaks so violently that it finally shatters the spell. Sometimes it's undeniable betrayal. Sometimes it's violence that crosses boundaries. Sometimes it's seeing the same pattern repeat with someone else and recognizing the absurdity from the outside. Or rarer and more powerful, she finally finds strength not to hate him, but to love herself. The way out exists, but it's not where most people look. It's not in finding a better man. It's not in waiting for the wrongdoer to change. It's not in applying relationship techniques or reading more about male psychology. The way out is in a much more uncomfortable place, looking inside and asking why you accepted this from the beginning. Why those first red flags weren't enough for you to walk away. Why you believed the excuses. Why you confused intensity with depth. And the answer usually hurts more than the relationship itself. Because it requires admitting that you weren't just a victim of circumstance. You actively participated in your own prison. Every time you ignored your instincts. Every time you accepted crumbs. Every time you went back after swearing you wouldn't. It's not your fault he is who he is. But it is your responsibility that you stayed. And taking responsibility for that, without punishing yourself for it, is the first real step toward freedom. Here's the liberating truth. You don't need to fully understand why you got addicted to him in order to leave. Endless analysis can become just another form of procrastination. You don't need to forgive him. You don't need to have a perfect closure conversation. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You just need to decide that your peace of mind is worth more than the emotional intensity he offers. And then act according to that decision, even when every cell in your body is screaming for you to go back. The first days are the worst. The brain in emotional withdrawal will try to convince you of everything. It will bring selective memories of the good moments. It will minimize the bad ones. It will create narratives that you exaggerated, that it wasn't that serious, that maybe you're the problem. It will generate false urgencies, like the feeling that you need to send that message now or you'll regret it forever. All of these are just strategies of the brain trying to get its dopamine dose. They are not truths. They are withdrawal symptoms. The only way to get through this is not to negotiate with those thoughts. Block all channels of contact. Delete numbers, social media, everything. Yes, it seems dramatic. But you are literally treating an addiction. And no addict recovers while keeping the drug one click away. You need to create physical barriers between you and him, because in moments of weakness, your willpower will not be enough. The barriers need to be stronger than your compulsion. And then comes the part no one warns you about, the emptiness. When the emotional intensity disappears, when there is no more drama occupying your mind 24 hours a day, you are face to face with yourself. And often you don't like what you find. Abandoned hobbies. Lost friendships. Forgotten dreams. A version of yourself that shrank to fit into the box he built. That emptiness is so frightening that many women rush into another relationship immediately, any relationship, just to avoid feeling the inner silence. But it is exactly in that emptiness that healing happens. That's where you have the chance to rebuild yourself, not as you were before him, but as someone completely new. Someone who learned to recognize red flags. Who developed clear boundaries. Who understands the difference between love and obsession. Who knows that a healthy relationship shouldn't require so much effort just to keep the other person interested. Who understands that being treated well is neither luck nor an achievement, it's the bare minimum. This rebuilding takes time. It doesn't happen in weeks. It usually takes months, sometimes years. Especially if you need to undo layers of conditioning that go back to childhood. Therapy helps immensely, but not everyone has access. The essential thing is to create a solid support network. People who remind you of reality when you start romanticizing the past. Who hold you when the longing hits. Who celebrate your small victories, like making it a week without checking his profile. And here's something crucial that few people understand. You will feel guilty for being better without him. It seems irrational, but it happens. You'll have good days, you'll laugh, you'll feel light, and suddenly there's that pang of guilt. As if you didn't have the right to be happy after everything that happened. As if joy meant you didn't really love him. This feeling is just another trap. Happiness betrays no one. You don't owe loyalty to your own suffering. Eventually, if you do the internal work needed, a day will come when he will try to come back. And you'll realize you don't feel anything anymore. Not anger, not longing, not a desire for revenge. Just indifference. That is the real sign that you've healed. Because the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. When you can look at him and see just a stranger who had temporary access to your life, you are free. The most important lesson of all this is not about men. It's about you. It's about recognizing that you deserve relationships where you don't have to guess whether you're loved. Where you don't need to compete for attention. Where vulnerability is safe, not a weapon used against you. Where you grow, instead of shrink. And maybe most importantly, it's about understanding that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel alone even when they're beside you. If you've made it this far, you probably recognize something of yourself in this description. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The brain is programmed to create these patterns. But you are not a hostage to that programming. You can choose differently. You can choose hard now for peace later. You can choose temporary loneliness for true love eventually. You can choose yourself. And if this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel. There's much more here about relationships, psychology, and personal development. But more important than subscribing, do something today, no matter how small, that brings you closer to the life you deserve.